Throughout my teenage years and into my young adulthood, one of my favorite things to do was to eavesdrop on the Trinity Broadcasting Network, home to the tackiest, slimiest, most shameless purveyors of Christian televangelism. They were all there: Pat Robertson, Joel Osteen, Joyce Meyer, John Hagee, Benny Hinn, James Robison and his clearly terrified wife Betty, Kenneth Copeland, and, of course, the founders of TBN, Paul and Jan Crouch. Paul and Jan are both dead now, but oh, what a legacy they left behind, no pun intended. Not only did they create a home for Christian broadcasting at its absolute worst, they also dabbled in the movie business. In 1990, Paul Crouch and his son Matthew were producers on the film China Cry, which dramatizes the true story of Nora Lam, a young Chinese Christian woman who is persecuted following the rise of Mao Zedong's communist government. 9 years later, TBN Films had its greatest success to date when it produced The Omega Code, which managed to get a wide theatrical release and even finished in the top 10 of the box office its opening weekend, thanks to several months of continual promotion from TBN. And in 1995, between China Cry and The Omega Code, TBN Films produced its own version of The Jesus Story, because I think we can all agree there haven't been nearly enough movies made about Jesus. In 1995, all they had were DeMille's King of Kings, Nicholas Ray's King of Kings, Pasolini's Gospel According to St. Matthew, The Greatest Story Ever Told, Zeffirelli's Jesus of Nazareth miniseries, the 1979 Jesus film, The Last Temptation of Christ, just off the top of my head. And who better to step up and fill that gaping void of Jesus-related cinema than the Trinity Broadcasting Network? TBN's Jesus movie is titled The Revolutionary, and it's available to watch for free through TBN's website. So why don't I do that? And then I'll check back with you, let you know what I thought of it. Sound good? Good. Oh, yes, TBN has a Roku channel, and yes, I have it installed on my TV. You can judge me all you want. I know I've been forgiven. Anyway. Well, there we are. And, by the way, yes, that lower third is accurate. The Revolutionary is only 48 minutes long. I'll get to that in a second. The first thing you need to know about The Revolutionary is that it was written and directed by nobody, and it stars nobody. The second thing you need to know is that it's barely even a movie. The Revolutionary was originally produced to be shown in TBN's virtual reality theaters. To my knowledge, there were only ever 2 of those. One at Trinity Music City in Hendersonville, Tennessee, and one at Trinity Christian City International in Costa Mesa, California. So the movie was never what you would call widely distributed. And since TBN closed both of its virtual reality theaters in 2016, it hasn't been available anywhere except online. And that's unfortunate because while The Revolutionary might have seemed okay as part of an immersive multimedia attraction, it utterly fails on its own merits as a film. TBN's virtual reality theaters were somewhat state-of-the-art when they first opened, and for a time, The Revolutionary was one of their main attractions. The VR theaters featured a 48-channel sound system that was hyped as being able to put you in the picture. And about that picture, The Revolutionary was shot in high-definition video, which was a much bigger deal in 1995 than it is today. I never saw The Revolutionary in one of the VR theaters, so I can't speak to that experience, but having just watched the version that is streaming on TBN's website, I can't think of any reason why I would want anyone or anything to put me in that picture. The Revolutionary hits many of the same story beats as the other films about Jesus. The main problem with it is it forgets to surround those story beats with, a story. Instead of a cohesive narrative, we get a series of vignettes drawn from the Gospels. There's the Annunciation to the Shepherds, featuring my favorite character in the movie, by the way, this angel who looks like he's taking a break from robbing banks with the ex-presidents. You have to warn Bodie, Utah's a Fed. There's Jesus being baptized by John the Baptist, featuring this intensely homoerotic slow-mo shot of Jesus coming up out of the water. There's Jesus turning water into wine, Jesus pissing off people at the synagogue in Capernaum and casting out a demon played by an actor who is obviously having a great time, Jesus teaching his followers about how hard it is to get into heaven because God's such a jerk, I'm paraphrasing, Jesus throwing a tantrum in the temple, Jesus walking on water and calming the storm, Jesus telling his disciples, oh, by the way, I'm going to be killed, but don't worry, it's part of the plan, Jesus riding a donkey into Jerusalem, Jesus being betrayed by Judas, Jesus on the cross. Hey, is that Sam Elliott on the cross next to him? Did they crucify Wade Garrett? What's going on, mijo de Dios? Damn, this hurts, don't it? Any Christian movie review where I get to shoehorn in references to not one but two Patrick Swayze movies is a good one, I say. Anyway, there's also the discovery of the empty tomb featuring the return of my favorite character, Hey Surfer Dude Angel, and finally the giving of the Great Commission and the Ascension. Yes, they cram all of that and more into 48 minutes. The Revolutionary is able to show us so much of the life of Jesus in such a short time because it simply moves from one episode to the next without bothering to give the film any kind of overall structure. There's no narrative to speak of, no sense of how these various events in the life of Jesus are related to each other or of what greater significance, if any, they have. It's just a lot of Jesus doing this, Jesus doing that, Jesus doing another thing. Oh, look, there's Jesus doing something else. The only actor in the film who has a chance to give a performance is John K. Steele, who plays Jesus as a bland platitude dispenser. The one scene where he shows something resembling genuine emotion is this one, when he's weeping over Jerusalem. And shitty, matted-in miniature aside, the scene plays like something out of a completely different movie, because everything else in the film is so paint-by-numbers and flat. Correction, there is one other actor who gives a standout performance, and it's this guy, who plays a Roman soldier who mocks Jesus while he's on the cross.
If you are the king of the Jews, why don't you rescue yourself? Huh? Where is your mighty army?
I mean, that guy's just having fun. Good for him. When The Revolutionary was first released, TBN made a big deal about how it had been shot entirely on location in the Holy Land. I have no idea how true that claim is, but if they paid for anything more than a camera crew and a helicopter ride, they wasted their money. The only shots that register as being shot on location are these aerials of the countryside. Most of the other scenes could have been filmed anywhere, and several were clearly shot on sound stages. Here's the thing I find truly baffling about The Revolutionary. The people who made it, at least the ones who put up the money and made most of the important decisions, were Christians. They believed they were fulfilling their Great Commission, telling the story of Jesus Christ, who came to earth to live and die for the sins of humanity, so that whosoever believes in him shall not die, but have life everlasting. And they had experience making movies. China Cry and the Omega Code aren't exactly what I would call good, but they at least prove that TBN Films was capable of producing actual movies with plots and characters and professional actors and directors capable of framing a shot so it didn't look like somebody's home movie of a Sunday school passion play. So why does their version of the Jesus story play like an indifferently shot and acted second-rate fairy tale theater knockoff? Remember I mentioned that it's only 48 minutes long? Well, someone at TBN Films must have thought they forgot a few things, because a year later they released The Revolutionary 2. Since the first film ends with the death and resurrection of Jesus, the only thing for The Revolutionary 2 to do is to go back and dramatize some of the events from the Gospels that they left out the first time. It also runs just over 3/4 of an hour, and it plays kinda like Jesus the Lost Episodes. The difference this time around is that the filmmakers bother to actually string a few of the vignettes together into a rudimentary narrative. Jesus gives a blind man his sight and raises Lazarus from the dead, both of which attract the attention of the high priest Caiaphas, who has Jesus arrested and turned over to Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor of Judea, who orders Jesus crucified as Caiaphas and the other high priests demand. It's not a great story, nor one that's very well told, but at least it is a story, rather than a series of unrelated scenes, connected only by the fact that they're all from the same dude's life. And Caiaphas, Pilate, and the blind man are allowed some minimal development, which beats the hell out of the characterization in the first part. So I guess what I'm saying is, The Revolutionary 2 is a better film than The Revolutionary 1. But I'm pretty sure that's the only film it's better than. My favorite Jesus films, The Last Temptation of Christ and Pasolini's Gospel According to St. Matthew, benefit from being mostly non-devotional. They're not interested in converting people to Christianity. They're interested in telling stories. They deal with religious themes, yes, but they're artful, not preachy. But even among the most ardently evangelical films about Jesus, it's not difficult to find ones that are way better than The Revolutionary. For instance, take this version of the Gospel According to Matthew from 1993, also released under the title The Visual Bible, Matthew. It's over 4 hours long, dramatizing the entire Gospel of Matthew word for word. It's not what I'd call a good movie either, way too long for one thing, and more interested in putting the Bible on screen than in making a good film. The fact that they include on-screen chapter and verse references for every scene kind of gives that away. But despite these shortcomings, this one does at least feel like a movie. It's obvious the director has a decent eye and has gone to the trouble of, composing interesting shots and attempting to give the film some semblance of visual style. And while Bruce Marciano isn't my favorite on-screen Jesus by far, he does succeed at creating a specific character through his performance, a passionate Jesus who feels joy and sorrow and anger with great intensity, and who makes his scripture-derived dialogue sound like words he's actually saying, rather than quotations he's reverently reciting.
How can you say to your brother, "Let me take the speck out of your eye," when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite.
Which is more than I can say for this guy. What delusional audacity it must have taken for them to title this thing The Revolutionary. I wouldn't believe this guy is the leader of a dinner theater production of Godspell. Forget about a revolution. It's not a good movie. It's not even a good evangelical movie. It barely qualifies as a movie at all. So why did I watch The Revolutionary? I think it was so I would be able to contemplate the most important question anyone can ever ask. And that question, of course, is...
Where is your mighty army? Huh?